My fiancée called me and told me not to wait for her for dinner. She said she would have dinner with her mother. I said okay, because I trusted her. But an hour later, my friend sent me a picture. When I saw it, I was shocked and got goosebumps. When I sent the same picture to my fiancée, she started arguing with me. So I went there myself. Please subscribe to my new channel and support me. I hope you will stand by me, and together we can reach 1,000 subscribers very soon. The apartment smelled like garlic and rosemary. I had spent 2 hours making dinner. Real dinner, not the kind you order and pretend you cooked. Pasta from scratch. A salad with actual dressing I whisked myself. Candles on the table, because Maya always said I never made enough effort on ordinary Tuesday nights. So that night I did. I set everything up properly. 2 plates, side by side. 2 glasses of red wine already poured, breathing on the counter. The kind of evening that looks small from the outside, but feels like everything when you're in the middle of it. I was just about to sit down when her name lit up my phone. "Hey, babe," she said, and her voice had that particular lightness to it, the kind that means the news coming next is being carefully wrapped before delivery. "Don't wait for me tonight. I'm having dinner with Mom. You know how she gets when I cancel on her last minute." I looked at the table. 2 plates. 2 candles. 2 glasses. "Of course," I said. "Tell her I said hi." And I meant it. Every word. Maya and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months. She had never once given me a reason to doubt her. Not a single one. So I covered the pasta with a lid, blew out one of the 2 candles, and sat down alone. A podcast played in the background. I ate slowly. I didn't check her location. I didn't send a follow-up text asking when she'd be home. I just ate, cleaned up, and trusted her the way you trust someone when they have spent 4 years earning it. That's what trust looks like. Quiet. Undramatic. Completely ordinary. Real. Update 2 an hour passed. Maybe a little more. I was on the couch, half watching something on TV, when my phone buzzed. Not a call. A message, from Richard, my college roommate who now lived across the city and had, for as long as I had known him, a particular talent for being in exactly the wrong place at exactly the wrong time. There was no caption, no explanation, just a photo. I stared at it. My chest went still in that strange, hollow way it does when your brain understands something that your heart hasn't caught up to yet. It was a restaurant, a nice one, the kind with low amber lighting and white tablecloths and a wine list that goes on for 4 pages. And sitting at a corner table, her back partially to the camera, but her posture and her laugh completely unmistakable, was Maya. Across from her was a man I had never seen before in my life. He was well-dressed. Mid-40s, maybe. He was leaning forward slightly, his expression serious and focused. They were talking, not laughing. It looked, from the outside, like an important conversation. I sat with the photo for a moment. Then I forwarded it to Maya. No words. No question mark. No accusation attached. Just the image, sent back to her the same way it had arrived to me, quietly, without decoration. Her reply came in less than 2 minutes. That told me something before I had even read a word. That is not what it looks like. You're being paranoid. Why would Richard even send you something like that? He has always tried to cause problems between us. You know that. Then she called. Her voice was sharp at first, then defensive, then tearful. She cycled through all 3 within the space of a few minutes. She said I didn't trust her. She said Richard had always had it out for their relationship. She said she couldn't believe I would think something like this about her. I listened to every single word. I didn't interrupt once. When she was finished, I said only this. I'm going there. Not as a threat. Not as an ultimatum. The same way you tell someone you're going to step outside for a moment. Calm. Decided. Done. What I didn't know yet. Richard had recognized the man immediately. He wasn't a stranger. His name was Dr. Elliot Vance, one of the most respected oncologists in the entire city. Update 3. I drove across town and walked into the restaurant. They were still at the table. The dinner was mostly finished, plates pushed slightly back, a half-empty bottle of wine between them. The man was leaning forward, speaking in a low voice. Serious. Focused. The posture of someone delivering information, not making conversation. Maya saw me first. Her face did something I had never seen it do before. Something complicated and layered, like 3 different emotions arriving at the same moment and none of them sure where to land. She stood up. James, sit down, I said. Quietly. Not as a command. As a kindness. Please. I pulled a chair from the empty table beside them and sat down as naturally as if I had been running a few minutes late to a dinner I had been invited to all along. The man across from Maya looked between us carefully, reading the situation. "I'm James," I said, extending my hand across the table. "Maya's fiancé." He shook it without hesitation. "Elliot Vance." "I think I should explain." "Please," I said. And I meant that too. 6 weeks ago, Maya had found a lump. She hadn't told me. Not a word. Dr. Elliot Vance was her oncologist. Tonight was not a date. It was her final consultation before a biopsy she had been postponing, week after week, because she was terrified. Not of the diagnosis. Of me. Of what knowing would do to me. The restaurant kept moving around us. Silverware clinked. Someone nearby laughed at something. A waiter passed with a tray. None of them knew that the entire world had just shifted at this particular corner table. I looked at Maya. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring at the white tablecloth as if the right words she needed were somewhere in its fabric, and she just hadn't found them yet. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. My voice came out steadier than I expected. I needed it to be. For her. She finally looked up. The edges of her eyes were red. "Because the last time someone you loved got this kind of news, you fell apart, James. I watched you, and I needed to know something for certain before I put that weight on you. I didn't want to scare you over something that might turn out to be nothing." I let that sit for a moment. Really sit. She had kept a secret this enormous. Not to protect herself, but to protect me. Update 4: Dr. Vance quietly excused himself to give us space. He was a decent man. You can always tell, not by manners, but by the instinct to step back when two people need room without being asked for it. Maya reached across the table and put her hand over mine. "Are you angry?" she asked. Almost a whisper. "No," I said, and it was the complete truth. She exhaled, a long, slow breath she had probably been holding for 6 weeks. "I should have told you. I know that. I've known that this whole time. But James, I was scared. Not of the lump. Of losing you to your own fear before we even knew if there was anything real to be afraid of." I turned my hand over and held hers properly. "Maya, my mother was sick for 3 years. And for every single one of those days, my father held her hand. He never fell apart in front of her. Not once. Not even at the very end." I paused. "That's what I remember. Not the hospital rooms. Not the bad days. The holding. That's all I ever wanted to be for you." Her eyes filled up. She didn't say anything. When Dr. Vance returned, he told us something Maya hadn't passed on to me. The preliminary scans were actually looking quite favorable. What she had been calling a simple consultation was really him gently trying to convince her, week after week, to stop delaying. Because the early indicators were far more hopeful than she had been allowing herself to believe. She had been carrying the full terror of a worst-case scenario that the medical evidence wasn't even supporting. She had suffered alone, in silence, for 6 weeks. Not because she didn't trust me, but because she loved me so completely that she had chosen to absorb the fear herself rather than share it. That is the strange, painful math of the people who love us most. They take on pain to spare us, and then they carry it double, once from the pain itself, and once from the loneliness of keeping it hidden. Update 5: I didn't lecture her. I didn't lay out everything she had done wrong, point by point, the way you might in an argument you want to win. I didn't negotiate or ask for an apology, or make her feel worse than she already did. I picked up the menu. I flagged the waiter. I ordered a glass of whatever red wine they had open. "I'm staying for dinner," I said. "If that's all right with the doctor." Dr. Vance, when he came back to the table, smiled for the first time all evening. More than all right. We stayed for another hour and 40 minutes. We talked through everything, the biopsy, the scheduling, what the procedure actually involved, what the recovery looked like, which hospital she preferred, what the realistic timelines were. We talked about everything she had been managing alone, the appointments, the phone calls, the waiting rooms, while I had been going to work every morning thinking our biggest current problem was figuring out the seating chart for the wedding. It was a strange kind of conversation to have at a restaurant on a Tuesday night, but it was the right one. On the drive home, something finally clicked about Richard. He hadn't sent me that photo to expose Maya. He hadn't sent it to start something. Richard had recognized Dr. Vance the moment he saw him. He knew exactly what kind of doctor he was and what that specialty meant. He had panicked, thinking I had no idea that Maya was sick. That message wasn't betrayal. It was someone who had sat beside me through the worst time of my life, who had watched me lose my mother, and who refused to let me be blindsided by something like this again. It was loyalty. Quiet, imperfect, urgent loyalty. I texted him from the car. "Thank you. She's okay. We're going to be okay." He replied with a single emoji. A hand. Open. Steady. Update 6. Maya was quiet for most of the drive. The city moved past the windows in long amber streaks. Somewhere around the halfway point, she turned slightly toward me and said, "You're really not going to yell at me? Even a little?" "No. Most people would." "I'm not most people," I said. "And you're not most people either. You were scared, Maya. Scared people hide things. They protect the ones they love in ways that aren't always right, but always come from the same place. I understand why you did what you did." I kept my eyes on the road. "I don't agree with it. I need you to never do it again. But I understand it completely." She was quiet for another long stretch. Then, softer, "How are you so calm right now?" "Honestly, I thought about my father. I thought about how across 3 years of hospitals and hard news and days that had no good ending, he had never once raised his voice. Not in fear, not in grief, not in anger. Not at doctors, not at circumstances, not at my mother. He had simply stayed, calm and present and completely there. And I had watched that, for 3 years, and I had understood something that you cannot learn from anywhere else. That real calmness is not the absence of feeling. It is the decision, made over and over again, to lead with love instead of fear. "Because I'm not angry," I said. "I'm relieved. You're sitting next to me right now, and you're going to be okay. And tomorrow morning we're calling the hospital together, and we're scheduling that biopsy, and I'm coming with you. That's the only thing that matters to me tonight." She didn't say anything for a while after that. When we got home, the pasta was still on the stove, covered, exactly where I had left it. Maya walked into the kitchen and just stopped. She stood there looking at the pot with the lid on it, and the one remaining candle on the table, and the second wine glass still full from earlier, and something in her completely gave way. Not in sadness. In that specific kind of overwhelm that only comes when you have spent weeks bracing for a fight, and what arrives instead is a covered plate and someone who simply waited for you. She had prepared herself for the worst version of me. She got a Tuesday night dinner that had been kept warm. We reheated the pasta and ate at midnight, at the kitchen table, with one candle between us. We talked about the wedding. We talked about her mother, who had, it turned out, genuinely texted Maya during the consultation, which is where the dinner alibi had come from. Impulsive, unplanned, completely unnecessary in the end. We talked about the biopsy and what the weeks ahead might look like and how we were going to handle it together. The way you handle things when you have decided that someone is your person and you meant it when you said so. We talked until nearly 2 in the morning. The way people talk when they have come close to something and want to stay inside the warmth of each other's voice just a little longer before the night ends. Final update: the biopsy came back benign. The lump was a common cyst, the kind that appears without warning and disappears without consequence. Meaning nothing except that our bodies are constantly running 1,000 quiet processes we never notice until something briefly catches our attention. Maya was fine. She is fine. But I think about it sometimes. The other version of that night. The one where I walked into that restaurant with fire already building in my chest. Where I turned a corner table into a courtroom and made her defend herself before I understood anything at all. Where I let a photograph become a verdict before I had heard a single word of the story behind it. In that version, Maya, already frightened, already exhausted from 6 weeks of carrying something enormous alone, would have looked up and seen me at the very worst I am capable of being. And that image would have settled somewhere between us and stayed there forever, like a stone in a shoe you eventually stop noticing but never stop feeling. Instead, I pulled up a chair and asked to be told. That is the whole lesson. Not just from that night, but from every hard conversation, every moment when the world drops something in your lap that looks like betrayal before you have read the full story. You ask first. You breathe first. You sit down before you stand up. Love is not the absence of secrets or fear or pain. Love is the agreement, made again and again, in ordinary moments and impossible ones alike, to stay at the table long enough to hear the whole truth. We got married the following spring. It was a small wedding, the kind where everyone in the room actually knows each other. Richard gave a toast. He talked about friendship and loyalty and the specific kind of courage it takes to send the message that nobody else is willing to send. He cried somewhere near the end of it. Genuinely, completely cried. I let him. Some stories don't end in wreckage. Some of them end in cold pasta reheated at midnight, and a single candle between two people who looked at everything that could have gone wrong and chose each other anyway. This was one of those stories. The calmest person in the room is always the most powerful, not because they feel nothing, but because they have already decided what matters most.